I want to get this out of the way now. I have never played Final Fantasy VII. In fact, the only Final Fantasy game I had ever played is Final Fantasy XIV, which I have a comical amount of hours in. For me, this made my experience playing Final Fantasy VII Remake particularly interesting. Now, going in, I was pretty familiar with a lot of the things about the game's story. I mean, the original did release in 1997, nearly 30 years ago, so there's no way I could have avoided all those random spoilers that have now become pretty standard to know just in the history of gaming. That's all okay though, because there's so much more to this game and series than just those few iconic moments, which may have been spoiled. I decided to start this way to give you my frame of reference for things. I think the way I experienced a game is a key part of the way I will review the game, and it's important for you as the audience to know that information. I don't want any lore nerds busting down my door if something I say isn't fully accurate to the original game because, as I said, I've never played it. But having played the remake, which in reality only remakes the first section of the game, I am interested in playing the original to try it out. So, without further ado, let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Final Fantasy VII Remake, just like the original, follows Cloud Strife, who joins up with eco-terrorists Avalanche as they work to take down the mega-corporation Shinra, whose power reactors are draining the Earth of its life force. Throughout the game, we get an inside look at the impact Shinra is having on the people of Midgar, relegating some people to the lower city slums while the bigwigs and bureaucrats live in the upper city. The game also takes its time letting you meet the various characters so you can understand who they are and why they're fighting for a better tomorrow. Final Fantasy VII Remake is an extremely strong start to a series of games, the second of which is already out, as well as spin-offs. I know I'm late to the game on this one. It does a great job of being its own thing outside of the legendary history of the original. I feel that far too often when it comes to remakes, or especially the recent trend of making a sequel 20 plus years after the original, and this applies to games and movies, it is very easy for creators to try and use nostalgia as a tool to bring in fans. What I appreciate about Final Fantasy VII Remake is that while there are very clear references and callbacks to the original, they in no way impede a new player like me from enjoying the game. The biggest switch up from other Final Fantasy games, including the original, was a fully new combat system. The game feels more like an action RPG with a Final Fantasy layer of paint on it. At first it felt a little bit wonky, but once I got used to all the systems, I found myself actually really enjoying it. The fast-paced, button-mashing combat paired with the ability to control teammates and trigger different spells and abilities reminded me a lot of the Dragon Age games, where it almost at times felt like a tactical game. For a majority of the game, though, this ran pretty smoothly. However, there were a few enemies that I don't think worked for this style of combat. In one section of the game, you have to fight against various ghosts, and one of the things they do constantly is turn invisible or change forms, which prevents you from dealing damage. In a turn-based environment, I can see this working well, as it allows the player to strategically plan out attacks around the enemy's cycles of disappearing and reappearing. In this game, though, there never seemed to be any sign that the enemies would change form, and that led to attacks constantly missing after they've already used the MP or the charge of your ATB bar. It wasn't a huge section of the game, thankfully, but fights like that ended up feeling more frustrating than fun. I'm not sure if the enemies functioned the same way in the original, or if they are even in the original at all, but the enemies felt to me like they were designed for a turn-based game. An area I think the devs really succeeded in, though, is expanding the game, which really only represents about 25% of the original, into a full experience. The game's side missions and minigames never felt forced or too out of place for the world, and they were all extremely enjoyable and never tedious. I beat the entire game, including every side quest, except for 2 because you can't do every quest in one playthrough, and it only took me about 30 hours. I never felt bored in that time and enjoyed basically all of it, except for the frustrating bits that I already mentioned earlier. I also want to mention that I played the game on the PS5 version, which included the intermission DLC. I haven't gotten around to the DLC yet, although it is on my to-do list, but I only brought this up because I want to mention how good the game looks. It is absolutely gorgeous. There's so much detail that went into crafting the world, and running around and taking the time to explore really pays off because you get to see so much more of it. Frankly, Midgar seems like an extremely bleak place to live, and I feel bad for the people in the game. But through good design, exploration never felt like a slog, and even the bleakest of places were worth a visit. Even the few times you have to travel through an area you've already been to, the devs did a great job of keeping those revisits fresh with new paths to explore, new missions, and of course, new items. All in all, I think that Final Fantasy VII Remake was a huge success, giving older players a chance to relive the nostalgia and new players a chance to see it all for the first time. The game feels incredibly accessible for modern audiences, while also paying tribute to and honoring everything that came before it. The game also, I think, shines a light on the future of the franchise, with newer games like Final Fantasy XVI already adopting a more streamlined action RPG approach. If you're someone looking to get into the world of Final Fantasy, VII Remake seems like a perfect place to get started, and then you can easily expand your horizons from there. I'm already planning to go back and play some of the earlier games. Primarily, I want to play the original 7, as well as other classics like Final Fantasy VI, and even the very first game on NES. Now is the time when the lore nerds and the OG purists can come at me in the comments below. Please, let me know how the remake compares to the original, and also let me know if those stupid ghosts are in the original and if they work mechanically better. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this review. If you like this review, please subscribe, like, comment, whatever. I don't know what the YouTube algorithm wants these days. I just make these for fun when I have time. You can also find me other places online. I stream on Twitch. I have a website where I write these reviews. You can read the written version of this review on my website right now if you prefer to get your content that way. Yeah, I'm Andy and I do things, you know? I do all the things. Peace out, y'all. I'll catch y'all on the flip side.